Book 15. The Achaean Armies at Bay. Back through jutting stakes and across the trench they fled, and hordes were cut down at the Argives' hands. The rest, only after they reached the chariots, stood fast, blanched with fear, whipped in desperate flight. That moment Zeus awoke on the heights of Ida, stretched out by Hera, queen of the golden throne. He leapt to his feet. He saw the Trojans and Achaeans, one side routed, the other harrying them in panic. Achaeans attacking, and god Poseidon led the way. And Zeus saw Hector sprawled on the battlefield, his comrades kneeling round him as he panted, struggling hard for breath, his senses stunned, vomiting blood. The man who'd struck him down was not the weakest Argive. At the sight of Hector, the father of men and gods, filled with pity now, and shooting a terrible glance down at Hera, burst out at her. "What a disaster you create! Uncontrollable Hera, you and your treachery! Halting not Hector's assault and routing Hector's armies? I wouldn't be surprised, my queen, if you were the first to reap the pernicious whirlwind you have sown. I'll whip you stroke on stroke. Don't you recall the time I strung you in mid-air and slung those two massive anvils down from your feet and lashed both hands with a golden chain you could not break? There, in the clouds and high, clear sky you dangled, and the mighty gods on steep Olympus raged away, impotent. What could they do to set you free? Standing there, helpless. And any god I caught I'd seize and send him plunging over the ramparts, head first, till he hit the earth, barely alive. Not even then would the stark grief for Heracles release my breaking heart, my own godlike son. You, with the north wind's help, had coaxed the gales to send him scudding over the barren salt sea. You, always plotting miseries for my son. You bore him off to the crowded town of Kos, and there I saved him, whisked him away to safety, back to the stallion land of Argos, worn with torment. I will help you remember. You'll give up your treacheries. You will see if your warm embraces serve you then. Your bed of lust where you sank me in your arms. Down from the gods you came to allay me. You seduced me, blind. Her eyes wide, Queen Hera shuddered before his thunder, protesting, swearing a flight of winged oaths. Earth, be my witness. Now the vaulting sky above and the dark cascading waters of the Styx, I swear by the greatest, grimmest oath that binds the happy gods, by your sacred head, by the bed of our own marriage, that I at least would never take in vain. Never by will of mine did the god of earthquakes wreak havoc among the Trojan ranks and Hector and surge to help their foes. It must be his own great rage that drives him on. He pitied the sight of Argives pinned against their ships. Not I. Why, I'd be the first to counsel him to take your lead, Zeus. Wherever you command, my king of the black cloud. A rousing appeal, and the father of men and gods looked down and smiled and took command with a flight of winging words. Excellent, Hera. Now, if in the years to come you will accord with me, my wide-eyed queen, throned with me in the gods' decisive sessions, then Poseidon, bent as he is to go his own way, must change at once, and wrench his will to ours, to yours and mine, united. So then, Hera, if you mean what you say, down to the last word, go back now to the deathless tribes of gods and summon Iris to come before my presence. Summon Apollo, too, lord of the famous bow. Iris will fly to Achaea's bronze-armed troops and direct the god who shakes the earth to stop, to quit the war, and return to his own ocean halls. And let Apollo drive Prince Hector back to battle. Breathe power back in his lungs. Make him forget the pains that rack his heart. Let him whip the Achaeans in headlong panic rout and roll them back once more, tumbling back on the oar-swept ships of Peleus son Achilles. And he will launch his comrade Patroclus into action, and glorious Hector will cut him down with a spear in front of Troy. Once Patroclus has slaughtered whole battalions of strong young fighting men, and among them all, my shining son, Sarpedon. But then, enraged for Patroclus, brilliant Achilles will bring Prince Hector down, and then from that day on, I'll turn the tide of war. Back the fighting goes, no stopping it ever, all the way till Achaean armies seize the beetling heights of Troy, through Athena's grand design. But till that hour, I will never cease my anger, nor will I permit a single immortal god to save the Argive forces. Not till Achilles' prayer has been fulfilled. So I vowed at first. I bowed my head in assent. That day the goddess Thetis clutched my knees, begging me to exalt Achilles, scourge of cities. And the white-armed goddess Hera obeyed at once. Clearing Ida's peak, she soared for sheer Olympus, quick as a thought goes flashing through a man who's traveled the world. To be there, or there, as his mind swarms with journeys, fresh desires. So quick in her eager flight flew noble Hera now, and scaling steep Olympus went among the gods. The immortal powers, thronging Zeus's halls, they all sprang to their feet at sight of Hera, lifting cups to greet her, and crowding round the queen. But she passed the rest and took a cup from Themis, flushed with beauty, who ran to meet her first and hailed her now with winged words of welcome. Hera, what brings you back? You look so hurried. Oh, I know it. The son of Kronos has terrified you, your everlasting husband. Please, Themis, the white-armed goddess Hera answered firmly. Don't ask me to go through that ordeal again. You know his rage yourself, so rigid and unrelenting. But you keep on presiding over the gods, Themis, the feasting in the halls. You'll hear it all, and with you all the immortals. What a chain of disaster Zeus brings to light. Nothing to lift all spirits alike. I warn you, not among men, not among gods. If one's still left who warms to feasts his heart at peace these days. With those bleak words, Queen Hera took her seat. The gods looked grim throughout the halls of Zeus. She smiled, with her lips only, her forehead furrowed over her dark brows, as her anguish rose and she addressed them all. What fools we are, storming against Zeus. We are mad, and still we engage him, trying to block his way with a word or show or force. But there he sits softened away with never a care or qualm for us, claiming that he, among the deathless gods on high, is first in strength and power, none in the world his rival. So each of you here must take what blow he sends. Why, Ares, I gather, has just received his share. His son is dead in battle, his dearest son, Ascalaphus. Doesn't invincible Ares claim to be his father? Fighting words, and Ares pounded his sturdy thighs with the flats of both hands and let loose in grief. Now, you gods of Olympus, who could blame me now if I descend on Achaea's ships to avenge my son, my butchered son, even if fate will crush me, striking me down with a thunderbolt of Zeus, sprawled in the blood and dust with dead men's corpses. With that he called his henchmen Rout and Terror to yoke his team as the gods strapped on his shining gear. And now some great disaster might have come from Zeus, some wrath, some harsher rage to break the gods on high, if Pallas Athena, fearing the worst for all immortals, had not leapt from her throne, bolted through the gates, torn the helmet off his head, the shield from his back, and snatching the brazen spear from his burly grip, propped it against a pillar, and dressed the war god down in all his fury. Maniac, out of your senses, you're ruined. What are your ears for, Ares? Can't you hear the truth? Your wits are gone. Where's your respect for others? Can't you grasp what the white-armed goddess tells us? And she's just returned from Olympian Zeus. Just now. What's your pleasure? To fill your own cup of pain and slink back to Olympus, whipped and fuming, forced? You're planting the seeds of endless trouble for us all. He will leave those men in a flash, Achaeans, Trojans, overweening Trojans, and back great Zeus will come to batter us on Olympus. Seize one after another, gods guilty and innocent routed altogether. So now I tell you, drop this anger for your son. By now some fighter better than he, a stronger hand has gone down in his own blood, or soon will go. There's no small labor to rescue all mankind, every mother's son. With that sharp warning, Athena seated headlong Ares on his throne. But Queen Hera summoned Apollo from the halls, and Iris too, the messenger of the immortals, and gave them both their winging, marching orders. Zeus directs you to Ida with all good speed, but once you arrive and meet great Zeus's glance, do whatever the Father drives you to do. And with that command, Queen Hera strode home and regained her throne. But the two launched out in flight, and reaching Ida with all her springs, mother of flocks, they found the thundering son of Cronos seated high on Gargaron's peak, crowned with a fragrant cloud. Coming before the Lord of Storm and Lightning, the two just stood there, waiting. Nor was his heart displeased to see them both. How fast they'd obeyed his loving wife's commands. And first he issued Iris winging orders. Away, Iris. Quick as you can to the Grand Sea Lord Poseidon. Go and give him my message start to finish, and see that every word of it rings exactly so. Command Poseidon to quit the war and slaughter now. Go back to the tribes of gods or down to his bright sea. But if he will not obey my orders, if he spurns them, let him beware, heart and soul, for all his power he can never muster the will to stand my onslaught. I claim I am far greater than he in striking force. I am the firstborn, too. Yet the spirit inside him never shrinks from claiming to be my equal. Never, though other gods will cringe from me in terror. And Iris, riding the wind, obeyed his orders, swooping down from Ida's peaks to sacred Troy, like the snow or freezing hail that pelts from clouds when the north wind born in the clear heaven blasts it on. So, in an eager rush of speed, the wind-swift Iris flew and stopped beside the famous god of earthquakes, calling out to him, "Here is a message for you, God of the sea-blue main, who grips the earth. I speed this word to you from storming Zeus. He commands you to quit the war and slaughter now. Go back to the tribes of gods or down to your bright sea. But if you will not obey his orders, if you spurn them, he threatens to come here in person and fight you down, power against power. Avoid his grasp, he warns. He claims he is far greater than you in striking force. He is the firstborn, too, yet the spirit inside you never shrinks from claiming to be his equal, never, though other gods will cringe from him in terror." But the glorious god of earthquakes shook in anger. What outrage! Great as he is, what overweening arrogance! So, boss me, will he? To wrench my will to his, I, with the same high honors? 3 brothers we are, all sprung from Kronos. All of us brought to birth by Rhea, Zeus, and I, Hades the third, lord of the dead beneath the earth. The world was split 3 ways. Each received his realm. When we shook the lots, I drew the sea, my foaming eternal home. And Hades drew the land of the dead engulfed in haze and night. And Zeus drew the heavens, the clouds, and the high clear sky. But the earth and Olympus heights are common to us all. So I will never live at the beck and call of Zeus. No, at his royal ease and powerful as he is, let him rest content with his third of the world. Don't let him try to frighten me with his mighty hands. And why? What does he take me for? Some coward out and out? He'd better aim his terrible salvos at his own. All his sons and daughters. He's their father. They have to obey his orders. It's their fate. Iris, quick as the breezes, tried to soothe him. Wait, God of the sea blue mane who grips the earth, you really want me to take that harsh, unbending answer back to Zeus? No change of heart, not even a little. The hearts of the great, you know, can always change. You know how the Furies always stand by older brothers. The Lord of the Earthquake yielded ground in answer. True, Iris. Immortal friend. How right you are. It's a fine thing when a messenger knows what's proper. But how it galls me. It wounds me to the quick. When the father tries to revile me with brute abuses equal in rank, our fated shares of the world the same. Still, this time, I will yield for all my outrage. But I tell you this, and there's anger in my threat. If ever, against my will, and Athena, queen of armies, Hera and Hermes, and the god of fire, Hephaestus, if Zeus ever spares the towering hearts of Troy, if he ever refuses to take her walls by force and give the Argive troops resounding triumph, let Zeus know this full well, the breach between us both will never heal. A sharp tremor, and the massive god of earthquakes left Achaea's lines. Into the surf he dove, and heroes missed him sorely. That very instant, storming Zeus dispatched Apollo. Go, my friend, to the side of Hector armed in bronze, the god of the quakes, who grips and pounds the earth, has just this moment plunged in his own bright sea. Diving away from all my mounting anger, just think what the gods would have heard if we had come to blows, even those beneath the ground who circle Kronos. Better for me this way, Poseidon too, to yield before my mighty hands. Outraged as he is, not without sweat would we have called it quits. But now take up in your hands my storm cloud shield, its dark tassels flying. Take it over the Argives, stampede their heroes in panic. Archer of the sky, but make this glorious Hector your main concern. Rouse his breakneck courage, till, racing in terror, the Argives reach the fleet in the Hellespont en route. From that point on, I plan my tactics. Give commands to grant the Argives breaching room in battle. Apollo did not neglect the father's orders. Down from Ida's peaks, he swooped like a hawk, the killer of doves, the fastest thing on wings. He found Prince Hector, the son of wise King Priam, sitting up now, sprawling on the ground no longer, just regaining his strength, just beginning to recognize his comrades round about him. His heavy sweating, his hard breathing stopped the moment the will of storming Zeus revived him. Apollo, the archer, stood beside him, taunting. Hector, son of Priam, why so far from your troops? Sitting here, half dead. Some troubles come your way? Hector, struggling for words, his helmet flashing. Who are you, my lord? Who of the high gods do probe me face to face? Haven't you heard? I was killing his friends against the ships when the lord of the war cry, Ajax, struck me down with a boulder square across my chest. He took the fight right out of me, I can tell you. I thought for certain I'd go to join the dead. Descend to the house of death this very day. I thought I'd breathed my last. But Lord Apollo, the distant deadly arch, reassured him. Courage, courage. Look what a strong support the son of Cronos speeds from Ida to take your side and shield you. I am Phoebus Apollo, Lord of the Golden Sword. I, who saved you before, and along with you your towering city too. So up now, Hector. Command your drivers here and all your hundreds to lash their plunging teams at the hollow ships, and I'll surge on ahead, clearing the whole way for the team's assault. I'll bend the Argives back. That breathed tremendous strength in the famous captain, as a stallion full fed at the manger stalled too long, breaking free of his tether, gallops down the plain. Out for his favorite plunge in a river's cool currents, thundering in his pride, his head flung back, his mane streaming over his shoulders, sure and sleek in his glory, knees racing him on to the fields and stallion haunts he loves. So Hector hurtled on, his legs driving, his knees pumping, spurring his reinsman once he heard the gods' command. And the Argives wheeled and gave ground quickly. Think how dogs and huntsmen off in the wilds rush some antlered stag or skittish mountain goat, but a rocky gorge or shadowed forest gives them shelter. They see it's not their lot to bring that quarry down. Their shouting only flushes a great bearded lion ramping across their path, suddenly charging them, scattering men in packs despite their lust for battle. So, up till now, the Achaeans kept advancing, closing formation, stabbing away with swords and rugged two-edged spears. But once they saw tall Hector attack the ranks again, they wheeled in terror. Hearts collapsed at their heels. But Thoas, son of Andrymon, spurred them on, Aetolia's best by far, skilled with the spear, superb at cut and thrust. Few Achaeans could put him down in debate when the young men vie and struggle over points. Now forth he came with calls to back his comrades. Look, a genuine miracle right before my eyes. Hector's escaped again. He's risen from the dead. And just as each of us hoped with all his heart, he dropped and died at the hands of giant Ajax. But again, some god swoops down and saves this Hector. And hasn't he wiped enough of us out already? Now he'll make more slaughter, well I know. He'd never be at the front smashing our lines, unless old Thunder Zeus had put him on his feet. So come, friends, do as I say. I'll take my lead. The rank and file go back, withdraw to the ships, but we who claim to be the army's finest champions stand our ground. Face him first. Try to beat him off. Spears at the ready. For all his fury, trust me, he'll quake before he penetrates our front. Sound tactics. The captains hung on his words, and all fell in line. Squads forming around great Ajax, King Idomeneus, Teucer, Meriones, and Meges, a match for Ares, closed tight for the onset, calling all their best to brace and face Prince Hector and Hector's Trojans. Behind them rank and file withdrew to Achaea's ships. But packed in a mass, the Trojans came on pounding, Hector leading the way with long leaping strides. Heading the van in person came the god Apollo, shoulders wrapped in cloud, gripping the storm shield, the tempest terror, dazzling tassels flaring along its front. The bronze-smith god of fire gave it to Zeus to bear and strike fear in men, and Apollo gripped it now, locked in his two fists as he led the Trojans on. But packed in a mass, the Argives stood their ground. Deafening cries of battle breaking from both sides as whipping arrows leapt away from bowstrings. Showers of spears raining from daring hardy arms went deep into soldiers' bodies, quick to fight, but showers of others cut short halfway before they could graze glistening skin. Struck in the ground, still lusting to sink in flesh. Long as Apollo held the storm shield firm in his grasp, the weapons hurtled side to side, and men kept falling. But once he looked the fast Achaean drivers square in the eyes, shook the shield, and loosed an enormous battle cry himself. Apollo stunned the high courage in all their chests. They lost their grip, forgot their fighting fury, routed like herds of cattle or big flocks of sheep when two wild beasts stampede them away in terror, suddenly pouncing down in their midst. Pitch darkness, the shepherd off and gone. So the defenseless Argives panicked, routed. Apollo hurled fear in their hearts and handed Hector and all his Trojans instant glory. There man killed man in the mad scatter of battle. Hector finished Stichius, finished Achaean off, the one a chief of Boeotians armed in bronze, the other brave Menelaus' trusty comrade. Aeneas slaughtered Medon and Iasus outright. Medon the bastard son of royal King Ilias, little Ajax' brother, but Medon lived in Phylake, banished from native land. He'd killed a kinsman dear to Aeolus' wife, his stepmother Areopas, but Iasus became a captain of Athens' troops. Spheles' son he was called, and Bucolos' grandson. Polydamas killed Mecasteus. Polites cut down Echius, first in the onset. Dashing Agenor cut down Clonius, and Paris lanced Dilochus deep below the shoulder. Ran him through from behind as he fled the front, and the bronze spear came jutting out his chest. While the Trojans tore the war gear off the bodies, Argives clambered back in a tangled mess, scrambling back through the sharp stakes and deep pit of the trench, fleeing left and right, forced inside the rampart. So Hector commanded his Trojans, sounding out, Now storm the ships! Drop those bloody spoils, any straggler I catch hanging back from the fleet, right here on the spot, I'll put that man to death. No kin, no women commit his corpse to the flames. The dogs would tear his flesh before our walls. With a full shoulder stroke he flogged his horses on, loosing a splitting war cry from the Trojan ranks, and all cried back in answer, a savage roar rising, driving teams and chariots close in line with his. And Apollo, far in the lead, the god's feet kicking the banks of the deep trench down with a god's ease, tumbled earth and the pit between, bridging it with a dike immense and wide and long as a hurtling spear will fly when a man makes a practice cast to test his strength. Holding formation now, the Trojans rolled across it, Apollo heading them, gripping the awesome storm shield, and he tore that Argive rampart down with the same ease some boy at the seashore knocks sandcastles down. He no sooner builds his playthings up, child's play, than he wrecks them all with his hands and kicking feet, just for the sport of it. God of the wild, cry Apollo, so you wrecked the Achaeans' work, and drove the men who had built it up with all that grief and labor into headlong, panicked rout. Achaeans stampeding back till they reined in hard, huddling tight by the sterns and shouting out to each other, flung their arms to all the immortals, each man crying out a prayer. But none as rapt as Nestor, Achaea's watch and ward, who stretched his hands to the starry skies and prayed, Father Zeus, if ever in Argos' golden wheatlands one of us burned the fat thighs of she-bulls bulls and begged a safe return, and you promised with a nod, remember it now, Olympian, save us from this ruthless day. Don't let these Trojans mow us down in droves. So he pleaded. And hearing the old man's prayers, Zeus, who rules the world, let loose a great crack of thunder, rending the skies. The Trojans, thrilled at the sound of Zeus's thunder, pitched themselves at the Argives still more fiercely, summoning up their fiery lust for battle. like a giant breaker rearing up on the rangy seas, crashing over a ship's sides, driven in by the winds, and the blast builds the comber's crushing impact. A hoarse roar. Trojans stormed over the rampart, lashing their teams to fight against the ships, hurling their two-edged spears at close range there. Trojans from lurching cars, but Achaeans from high decks, scrambling aloft black hulls, lunged down with the long pikes, jointed and clinched, and tipped with ripping bronze they'd kept on board for bloody fights at sea. And now, as long as the armies fought to take the rampart far from the fast ships, Patroclus sat it out in his friend Eurypylus' shelter, trying to lift the soldier's heart with stories, applying soothing drugs to his dreadful wound as he sought to calm the black waves of pain. But soon as he heard the Trojans storm the wall and shouts rise from Achaeans lost in panic rout, Patroclus gave a groan, and slapping his thighs hard with the flats of both hands, he burst forth in anguish. "I can't stay here with you any longer, Eurypylus, much as you need me. There, a great battle breaks. No, let an aid attend you here while I rush back to Achilles, spur him into combat. Who knows, with the gods' help, I just might rouse him now. Bring his fighting spirit round at last. The persuasion of a comrade has its powers." With the last words, his feet sped him on. Meanwhile, the Argives blocked the Trojan assault, but they could still not repel them from the fleet, outnumbering them as they did. Nor could the Trojans once break through the Argives' bulking forward mass and force their passage through to ships and shelters. Tense as a chalk line marks the cut of a ship timber, drawn true and taut in a skilled shipwright's hands. Some master craftsman trained in Athena's school, so tense the battle line was drawn, dead even. Some forces at some ships, some clashing at others, but Hector charged head on at Ajax, braced for battle, and both warriors fought it out for a single vessel. Nor could Hector burst through and ignite the hull, nor Ajax drive him back. A god drove Hector on. And here came Caletor, son of Trojan Clytius, sweeping fire against the prow, but famous Ajax stopped him short with a spear that stabbed his chest. Down he crashed, the torch dropped from his fist, right before Hector's eyes. He watched his cousin sprawl in the dust before the huge black ship, and gave a stirring cry to all his units. "Trojans! Lycians! Dardan fighters hand to hand, don't yield an inch, not in these bloody straits. Rescue Caletor before the Argives, strip his gear. He's down, he's dead by the ships that crowd the beach." As he raised that cry, he flung his spear at Ajax. But the glinting metal missed, and he hit Mastor's son, Lycophron, Ajax's friend in arms, Cythera born, yet he lived with Ajax once he'd killed a man on Cythera's holy shores. Hector killed him now with whetted bronze, cleaving his skull above the ear as he stood by Ajax. Down off the ship's stern he dropped, his back slamming the ground, his limbs slack in death, and Ajax shuddered, calling out to his brother, "Teucer, my friend, our trusted comrade's dead. Mastor's son, who came out our way from Cythera. We lived in our halls together, prized the man as we prize our beloved parents. Hector's killed him. Hurry, where are your arrows fletched with death? Where is the bow the god Apollo gave you?" And Teucer took the challenge, rushed to his side, and reflex bow in hand and quiver, bristling shafts, he loosed a splattering burst against the Trojans. He picked off Clytius, Pisanor's shining son, the charioteer to noble Panthus' son Polydamas, wrestling the reins, struggling to head his horses straight for the point, where most battalions panicked, eager to please Prince Hector and all his Trojans. Clytius raced on, but his death came even faster. No one could save him now, strain as they did. A sudden arrow jabbed him behind the neck, pierced him with pain, and out the car he hurtled, horses rearing in terror, empty chariot clattering off. But their master Polydamas marked the kill at once, ran and planted himself across the horses' path, and handed them on to Protion's son Astinus, shouting strict commands. Watch my every move. Keep the team close by. Then veering away himself, back again to grapple frontline troops. But Tucher, quick with his next shaft, the archer aimed at Hector's brazen crest, and would have stopped his assault on Argive ships, hit him squarely and torn his life out just as his courage peaked. But he could not dodge the lightning mind of Zeus. Standing guard over Hector, Zeus tore the glory right from Tucher's grasp. He snapped the twisted cord on his handsome bow, just as the archer drew it taut against his man, and the weighted bronze shaft skittered off to the side. The bow dropped from his hand, and Tucher shuddered, calling out to his brother, "Oh, what luck! Look, some power cuts us out of the fighting, foils our plans. He's knocked the bow from my grip. He snapped the string, the fresh gut I tied to the weapon just at dawn to launch the showers of arrows I let fly." "Oh, too bad, my friend," said Ajax. "Leave them there, that bow and spill of arrows down in the ground. A god with a grudge against us wrecks them all. Take up a long spear, shield on your shoulder, go for the Trojans, urge your troops to battle. Maybe they've whipped us here, but not without a fight. Will they take our benched ships? Call up the joy of war." At that, his brother dropped his bow in a shelter, slung a shield on his shoulder, 4 plies thick. Over his powerful head he set a well-forged helm, the horsehair crest atop it tossing bristling terror. And taking a rugged spear shaft tipped with whetted bronze, the archer went on the run to stand by Ajax's side. But Hector, seeing Tucher's arrows in disarray, let fly a resounding shout to all his units. "Trojans, Lycians, dart and fight us hand to hand. Fight like men, my friends. Call up your battle fury. Make for the hollow ships. I see with my own eyes how Zeus has blocked their finest archers' arrows. Easy to see what help Zeus lends to mortals, either to those he gives surpassing glory, or those he saps and wastes, refuses to defend. Just as he wastes the Argives' power, but backs us now. So fight by the ships, all together, and that comrade who meets his death in destiny speared or stabbed, let him die. He dies, fighting for fatherland. No dishonor there. He'll leave behind him wife and sons unscathed, his house and estate unharmed. Once these Argives sail for home, the fatherland they love." That was his cry, as Hector put fresh fighting spirit in each man. But Ajax fired the troops on his side too. "Shame on you, Argives! All or nothing now. Die or live and drive defeat from the ships. You want this flashing Hector to take the fleet, then each man walk the waves to regain his native land? Can't you hear him calling his armies on full force, this Hector, wild to gut our hulls with fire? He's not inviting them to a dance. Believe me, he commands them into battle. No better tactics now than to fight them hand to hand with all our fury. Quick, better to live or die, once and for all, than die by inches, slowly crushed to death, helpless against the hulls of the bloody press by far inferior men." And that was Ajax's cry, as the giant put fresh fighting spirit in each man. But Hector cut down Schedius now, Perimedes' son, a Phocian chieftain, and Ajax killed Laodamas, captain of infantry, Antenor's splendid son, and Polydamas killed Cylanian Otis outright, Meges' friend, one of the proud Epeans' leaders. Meges saw him drop. He lunged at Polydamas fast, but he ducked and veered away, and Meges missed him. Apollo was not about to let him fall at the front, not Panthus' son. But Meges did hit Chrysemus, stabbed him square in the chest with a thrusting lance, and down he crashed, with Meges tearing the armor off his back as the Trojan Dolops lunged at him. A crack spearman, Laomedon's grandson, Lampus' big and brawny son, the strongest he sired, the best trained for assault. Dolops quickly went for Meges at close range. He speared his bulging shield, but the solid breastplate warded off the blow, with both plates fitted tight to bind his body. The gear his father brought from Ephyra once. The Salus bank, where his host, the lord Euphates, gave him that sturdy bronze to wear in battle. to beat off the bloody attacks of desperate men, and now it saved his son's young flesh from death. So Meges chopped at the crown of Dolops' bronze helmet, split its spiny ridge with a sharp cleaving spear, and sheared away its bristling horsehair crest. Down in the dust the war gear tumbled, all still glistening bright in its fresh purple dye, but the man stood his ground, still rearing to fight, his hopes still soaring for triumph. But now Menelaus, Atrides out for blood, moved in to fight for Meges. Spear poised in his grip, in from the blind side, and struck from behind the Trojan's shoulders so hard the spear came jutting out through his chest in all its fury, and Dolops reeled and sank, face down on the ground. The two men swarmed over him, ripping the armor off his back as Hector called his kinsmen on, all his kinsmen, but marked out Hecation's son, the strong Melanippus, railing first at him. He used to graze his shambling herds in Percote, long ago when the enemy's forces stood far off, but once the rolling ships of Achaia swept ashore, home he came to Troy, where he shone among the Trojans, living close to Priam, who prized him like his sons. But Hector rebuked him now, shouting out his name. "Melanippus, how can we take things lying down this way? No qualm in your heart for this? Your cousin's dead. Can't you see how they're clawing over Dolops' armor? Follow me now, no more standing back, no fighting these Argives at a distance. Kill them, hand to hand, now, before they topple, towering Ilium down, all our people slaughtered." So with a shout, he surged ahead, and his gallant cohort followed. But great Telamonian Ajax spurred his Argives on. "Be men, my friends, discipline, fill your hearts. Dread what comrades say of you here in bloody combat. When men dread that, more men come through alive. When soldiers break and run, goodbye glory, goodbye all defenses." Up in arms as they were, to shield themselves, they took his word to heart, and round the ships they raised a wall of bronze. But against them Zeus impelled the Trojan ranks as Menelaus, lord of the war cry, urged Antilochus. "None of the younger troops, Antilochus, none, is faster or foot than you or tougher in combat. Why not leap right in and lay some Trojan out?" Menelaus withdrew as he drove Antilochus on. Out of the front he sprang, glaring left and right, and hurled his spear, a glinting brazen streak, and the Trojans scattered, cringing before his shaft. No wasted shot. Antilochus hit Hecation's son, impetuous Melanippus, sweeping into battle, stabbed him across the chest beside the nipple. Down he crashed, and the darkness swirled his eyes, with Antilochus rushing over him like some hound pouncing down on a deer that's just been wounded. Leaping out of its lair, a hunter's speared it, a lethal hit that's loosed its springy limbs. So staunch Antilochus leapt at you, Melanippus, stripping away your gear. But Hector marked it now, and straight through the ruck he charged Antilochus hard. Quick as that fighter was, he could not hold his ground, not there. He turned tail and broke like a rogue beast that's done some serious damage, mauled a dog to death or a herdsman tending flocks, and takes to his heels before the gangs of men can group and go against him. So Antilochus turned and ran as a savage cry went up, and Hector and all his Trojans showered deadly shafts in hot pursuit. And he wheeled and stood his ground when he reached his thronging cohorts. Now to the ships, like a pride of man-eating lions, the Trojan forces stormed the fleet, fulfilling Zeus's strict commands, as Zeus kept building their fury higher, stunned the Argive spirit, and wrenched away their glory, lashing Trojans on. The father's will was set on giving glory over to Hector, son of Priam, that he might hurl his torch at the beaked ships, the force of fire, quenchless, ravening fire, yes, and bringing to its bitter end the disastrous prayer of Thetis. For that alone he waited, the god who rules the world, to see with his own eyes the first Achaean ship go up in a blaze of flames. Then from that point on, he'd thrust the Trojans' breakneck back from the fleet and give the Argives glory. Dead set on that now, he drove Prince Hector against the hollow hulls. though the son of Priam raged in his own right, raged like Ares, with brandished spear or flash fire roaring down from a ridge into thick stands of timber. The foam flecked his mouth, and his eyes shot flame. Glaring under his shaggy brows, and round his head his helmet shook and clashed, a terrific wild din, Hector on the attack. And high in the clear sky Zeus himself defended his champion. Hector alone he prized, and glorified among hordes of men, for Hector's life would be cut short too so soon. Why, even now Athena was speeding the fatal day when he would fall to the power of great Achilles. But now he was bent on breaking men, probing the lines wherever he saw the largest mass and the finest gear, but he could not smash through yet for all his fury. They closed ranks. They packed like a stone wall, a granite cliff that towers against the churning surf, standing up to the screaming winds. Their sudden assaults on the breaking waves, they spawn that crash against its base. So the Danaans stood the Trojan onslaught, rock solid, and never flinched in fear. But Hector, all afire, blazing head to foot, charged at their main force, bursting down as a wave bursts down on a veering ship. Down from under the clouds it batters, bred by gale winds. Showers of foam overwhelmed the hall, blotted all from sight. The hurricane's killing blast thundering into the hall. Sails, and scudding clear of death by the skin of their teeth, the sailors quake, their hearts race on with terror. So the Achaeans' courage quaked. And Hector lunged again, like a murderous lion mad for the kill, charging cattle, grazing across the flats of a broad marshy pasture. Flocks by the hundred led by an unskilled herdsman, helpless to keep the marauder off, a longhorn heifer, no fighting that bloody slaughter. All he can do is keep pace with the lead of straggling heads, leaving the center free for the big cat's pounce, and it eats a heifer raw as the rest stampede away. So the Achaeans stampeded now, unearthly terror, all of them routed now by Father Zeus, and Hector, though Hector killed just one. Periphates, a Mycenaean, a favorite son of Copreus, Eurystheus' herald, who summoned rugged Heracles time and again to grinding labors. Copreus, yes, that worthless father, who sired a better son, better at every skill, primed for speed and war, and his wits outstripped the best in all Mycenae. But all of it went now to build Prince Hector's glory. As the Argives spun in retreat, his shield rim tripped him. Down to his feet, that shield he bore to keep off spears, he stumbled over it now, pitched back, helmet clanging harshly against his brows as the man hit the ground. But Hector marked him at once, rushed up to his side, and staked a spear in his chest to kill the fighter, right in the eyes of loyal comrades standing by. Sick for their friend, but what could they do? Nothing, just shake with dread in the face of mighty Hector. Now the Achaeans milled among the shipways, shielded round by the looming superstructure, stern on stern drawn up on the first line inland. But the Trojans stormed them there, and back they fell. They had no choice, edging away from the front ships, but once at the tents nearby they held their ground, massing ranks, no scattering back through camp. Their proud discipline gripped them, terror too. They rallied each other, non-stop war cries rising. Noble Nestor was first, Achaea's watch and ward, pleading, begging each man for his parents' sake. Be men, my friends. Discipline, fill your hearts, maintain your pride in the eyes of other men. Remember, each of you, sons, wives, wealth, parents, our mother and father dead or alive. No matter, I beg you for their sakes, loved ones far away. Now stand and fight, no turning back, no panic. With that he put new strength in each man's spirit. Athena thrust from their eyes the blinding battle haze, the darkness sent by the gods, and a hard, bright light burst down in both directions. Out to the ships and down the lines where fighting drew dead even. Now they could make out Hector, lord of the war battle cry. All his troops, squads and reserves, and clear of battle, forward squads that fought the fast trim ships. Ajax' challenge. How could it please his courage still to hang back now where other Achaeans held the rear? No more. Up and down the decks of the ships he went with his great plunging strides, swinging in hand his enormous polished pike for fights at sea, clamped with clinches 22 forearms long. Ajax skilled as a show rider, a virtuoso horseman who picks from the herd 4 stallions, yokes them tight, and galloping off the plains, comes racing toward a large city, over a trafficked road, and the crowds gaze in wonder, men and women watching. As sure-footed, never slipped, the rider keeps on leaping, swinging from back to back, and the pounding team flies on. So Ajax swung now, leaping from deck to deck on the fast trim ships, ranging with huge strides as his voice hit the skies, keeping up a terrific bellowing, calling Argives on to defend the ships and shelters. And Hector, too. How could he hold back with his massive armored Trojans? Now, like a flashing eagle swooping down on bird flocks, winged thousands feeding, swarming a river's banks, geese, cranes, swans with their long lancing necks. So swooping, Hector went headfirst at a warship, charged its purple prow, and Zeus behind him thrust him on with his mighty deathless hand, urging the soldiers on who crowded Hector's back. And again a desperate battle broke at the ships. You'd think they waded into the fighting, fresh troops, unbruised, unbroken. They fought with such new fire. And what were the fighters thinking? Only this. The Argives certain that they'd never flee the worst. They'd perish then and there. But the hope soared in every Trojan's heart to torch the ships and slaughter Argive heroes. So ran their thoughts, closing for the kill. At last, Hector grappled a ship's stern, a beauty built for speed. It swept the seas with Protesilaus, bore him to Troy, but never bore him back to his fatherland again. Now churning round that ship, Achaean and Trojans hacked each other at close range. No more war at a distance, waiting to take the long flights of spears and arrows. They stood there, man to man, and matched their fury, killing each other now with hatchets, battle axes, big swords, two-edged spears, and many a blade, magnificent, heavy-hilted, and thronged in black, lay strewn on the ground. Some dropped from hands, some fell as the fighters' shoulder straps were cut, and the earth ran black with blood. And Hector held fast. He never let go of the high stern. He hugged its horn, arms locked in a death grip, crying out to Trojans, "Bring fire! Up with the war cries, all together! Now Zeus hands us a day worth all the rest. Today we seize the ships." They stormed ashore against the will of the gods. They came here freighted with years of pain for us, and all thanks to our city elders. What cowards! Whenever I longed to fight at the ship's high sterns, the old men kept me back. They held the troops in check. Oh, but if Zeus' lightning hand blinded us those days, if Zeus who drives us hurls us on today. The harder he cried, the harder his forces charged against the Argives. Not even Ajax held his post, no longer now. Forced by the shafts, he backed away by inches, certain he'd die there. Down he leapt from the decks, down to bestride the 7-foot bridge amidships. There he stood, tensing, braced to take them on. His huge pike kept beating the Trojans off the halls, any attackers flinging tireless fire, and all the time that terrible voice of his bellowing out to cohorts, "Friends, fighting Danaans, aids and arms of Ares, fight like men, my comrades, call up your battle fury. You think we have reserves in the rear to back us up?" Some stronger wall to shield our men from disaster? No! There's no great citadel standing near with towers where we can defend ourselves and troops can turn the tide. No, we're here, on the plain of Troy. All Troy's in arms, dug in, backs to the sea. Land of our fathers far away. Fight! The light of safety lies in our fighting hands, not spines gone soft in battle. And with each cry he thrust his slashing pike with a fresh new fury. And any Trojan crashing against the beaked ship's torch ablaze in hand, straining to please Hector, who urged him on, Ajax, ready and waiting there, would stab each man with his long, rugged pike. 12 he impaled point blank, struggling up the hulls.